Now, actually, if I can just kind of get a gauge, what level are you guys? Primary, junior, intermediate, senior? Intermediate, senior, everyone? Secondary, okay. Actually, what kind of subjects, what are we looking at?
Math, econ.
Math?
Yo.
Spanish, math, biology, cool. French. So great. You know what? Pardon? Music. Oh, excellent. Music. That's great. Get them to create CDs. Get them to create CDs with the software.
Make a band.
Yeah, you get the band to kind of create I don't know, a bunch of Christmas songs and sell them out as and raise money for the music program, right? What else? What are we? Arts, economics. Cool. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to start. I'm Michael Papadimitriou. I'm a high school teacher at Francis Lieberman out in Scarborough, part of the Toronto Catholic District School Board. So pretty much what I'm not going to go through too much. We're not really going to talk about the technical aspects of uploading stuff and doing all that. I do have a link that I will show you in a second where you can get all the step-by-steps on how to actually upload something on to one of the websites that I'm going to show you, how to get iTunes to host your material, right? Because I really do think this is such a valuable resource for your students if you do choose to use it, and I think you can come up with some really cool ideas that you can do in the classroom with your students. It's actually online. It's because it's like about a 15-page, and I kind of want it to be a little green with and have you guys kind of go online and get it.
I think the biggest problem with podcasting is that you need the domain space, and most people don't have the domain space, or the schools don't provide it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what would you do to, like,
And that's actually what we're going to talk about. I'm going to actually show you guys a couple of free websites that will actually allow you to host all your stuff. I've got about 400 videos ranging from ones that I created to ones that my students created. So we kind of created, so the ones that I've created, and then the ones that students teaching students. That's pretty much our little umbrella group that we call it, where it's students teaching students, and it's either math, it could be science, it could be English, it could be geography. I think I do have a couple of French lessons online, and especially if you are in one of the languages, I think you can create some really cool language-based podcasts for those kind of subjects. I'm going to focus a little bit on the math and science, just because that's really what my teachable is. This year I'm teaching senior chemistry, junior science, and comm tech. Right? But I've also taught math in the past, and I do have quite a few math podcasts. If you do have any questions after today, you can email me at papapodcasts@gmail.com. So that's pretty much that's me. So that's where my students email me. That's who students that I don't even know who come across my podcast can email me if they have any questions. So yeah.
will there be a podcast of this workshop?
Actually, I'm recording right now, actually, as we speak. So one of the podcasts that I have from I have actually on my YouTube page today is actually from Monday's session. Right, so I'm hoping that I can get a better one, hopefully in this session, that I'll be a little more prouder. But there's about, I think, about 160 views since Monday, so which is kind of cool. So anyhow, here's the website. So the link to where you can get the step-by-step. I have actual pictures of the websites and showing you. One of the parts that may not work is some of the audio stuff, because one of the one of the websites called Gcast, the letter G, cast, CAST.com no longer exists, which kind of sucks because it was the easiest thing to put an audio thing onto. But if you go to, I think, Podcast Pickle or something like that, just kind of search for, just do a Google search. You're limited if you're doing audio stuff, But I think video is so much beneficial, especially if you're trying to show that visual learner something, right? You're just trying to show them a concept. Okay. So some of the tools you'll need, obviously the laptop or a desktop. Camcorder, this one's optional. I do a lot of screen capturing. So right now, my computer screen is being recorded. So whatever is showing up on my computer screen is being recorded. So if I kind of point at something, they won't be able to see what I'm pointing at, let's say. So what you would want to do is pretty much hook it up to a smart board, if possible, right? Optional. So if you did want to show something specifically and kind of point at it or emphasize it, take the pen up, start writing it, that digital ink will be recorded on the screen capture. I'll show you guys podcasts later and how we use it. Microphone, if it's not built into the laptop. Microphone's really cool just if you want to improve some of the sound quality. I know with myself, my microphone's built into my computer, but I usually try to project my voice in the classroom. So I'll be on the other side of the room and I'll be shouting. But I've also had the odd microphone. I had a company come in called Front Row. When they saw my podcast, they kind of came in and asked if I could do a couple of podcasts and kind of advertise them. So if you were on my site, you came across them that said, audio provided by Front Row. And what it was a system that I was able to hook up to my computer. It was wireless. We would set up a microphone. We could set up a microphone in the back of the class, set up a speaker in the back of the class, so the students who are sitting at the back are hearing the exact sound quality as the students who are sitting right in front of me. And it was pretty much, I was mic'd up, so whatever I spoke was very clear in the recording. And if a student wanted to ask a question, they just kind of grab the mic and ask them. It was, again, the quality was great. And it's something that I know that they're trying to bring into a lot of the school boards right now. So we're keeping our fingers crossed that we'll get to see a little more of that. So it's kind of like the professional speaking systems that you'll see in some smaller auditoriums for lecturing and stuff like that. Blogger account. So here we mentioned about a website that can host your videos. I have not had a limit. I've not had a problem with it. I think one of the channels that I've created, I think I have got about 58 videos on it that range anywhere from 10 minutes to close to an hour. And I've never had a problem with it being hosted there.
But is it like YouTube where like it has to be documented for copyright if there's copyright?
Yes. And so what you would do, some of the things that I'll do when putting on is pretty much write down if you're taking a link from somewhere, like an image from something online, put it on the website, address it. Maybe if you're presenting and say, if you're looking for this specific diagram, go to whatever to actually show them where that video is coming or that image is coming from. Blogger, the Blogger account, very similar to YouTube. The only thing with one thing with Blogger, what I like about Blogger is you can have it private to just your class. So whatever you publish, if you don't want it to go worldwide, you set up, let's say each student's email address, and you have it where only if they want to see it, they log into the address. So they can only, so you won't even be Google searchable, your page, if you blocked it and you made it private. So this is great, especially if you don't feel comfortable. For me, I really didn't care. It's like, whatever. If people like my teaching style, they like it. If they don't, who cares? Because really, if someone's really going to criticize it, if it's going to get to the minds of another student to understand the material, that's really who we're teaching. That's what we got to keep in mind. We got to keep in mind that's the audience. We're not trying to impress another colleague of ours. We're really trying to build the confidence of our students. That's really what it is. Feed burner account. This one's optional. This one, if you're thinking about posting onto iTunes, you want a feed burner account. Because that feed burner will allow you to redirect your videos from Blogger to iTunes using feed burner. Yeah.
Sorry, so it's strictly just for that purpose. Kind
That's
of,
really
if
what
you-
it is, yes.
One blogger, you had a video and you wanted to upload that
To iTunes, I would use FeedBurner, yes. So, but if you're not planning to upload onto iTunes at all, then you won't really need that. YouTube account, right? More places. Students really use YouTube a lot as a study tool. I had no idea. I thought people just kind of looked at it to go see, I don't know, cute little looking cats, you know, kind of playing with toys and stuff like that, or watch music videos, or do dumb stunts in front of the camera, right? But students actually use it, you know, for educational purposes. I've got my channel that, of course, you know, I don't get, you know, my videos aren't going viral, but people don't really care for balancing equations that much, right? But again, a lot of students do use it, and there are a lot of educational channels on YouTube. And so students are going there to help them with homework, believe it or not. Actually, I fixed my Xbox 360 too, so YouTube is great.
It's really slow for uploads.
Right?
It's really slow when you're uploading.
When you're uploading, it takes a little while, yeah.
It's also
Oh, yeah.
blocked in a lot of schools.
You know, but the thing is, I know we finally got it unlocked at our school, so now any student. So I know. So you really got to push it, especially if you're doing something on YouTube. Really try to push to try to get them to take that
Yeah.
off off the block list.
Because they can leave it for staff use,
Mhm.
but then let's say you want your students to go to refer to that,
Mhm.
right? And if they're running, let's say they don't have a computer at home, so you have
Mhm.
lab time or whatever.
See, that's the thing. Like, I know in my Comtech class, when students are creating some kind of assignment, whether it's a video or some kind of audio assignment, I usually tell them to go on YouTube and research what other people have done. When I first started doing my podcast, I went to see what others did, you know, and thought, okay, well, how can I make mine better than what they've done, right? And that's really what I tell my students. You know, there's nothing wrong with looking at what someone else has done and trying to improve it. Right? There is really nothing wrong with it, as long as there's something there that makes it their own, right? So it's not just them copying it every single thing, you know, if they're doing a video and they're recording every shot the same way that it was originally done and all the dialogue exactly the same, you know, of course that's plagiarism, but there's nothing wrong with taking something and improving on something that someone else has already done. Okay, so some of the software, smartboard tools, you'll see this little doohickey here on the side. If you download Smartboard 10 software, you'll see that pop up on your laptop. You click on it, and pretty much your smartboard tools will be there. So you can actually now, I could use my trackpad, which I'm not because it was lagging when I was trying it with the session just before this. You can actually use your trackpad or a mouse, or even a tablet. If you hooked up a pen tablet to your laptop, you can use that as a smartboard. So that when you open the tab out, the tools pops up, and you can actually pick even the colors that you want to use. So you use it. If you can manage the trackpad to help you write stuff, by all means do it. And so this is a way to create a podcast at home, right, without having to be in front of a smartboard, let's say. So let me just show you guys. Well, actually here, we've got it up here now. Some of the things, so screen capture, if you're using PC, you can use the smartboard. Also, if you're using a PC, you can also use something called Cam Studio, C-A-M Studio. Download the software, it's free, all this stuff is free. Right? And you can do a screen capture. But let me just show you guys the screen capture tool for, that comes with the smartboard. Right, it's this one right here, Smart Recorder. So big red circle, hit record, have your PowerPoint up. So have your PowerPoint set up. If you're going to teach with a PowerPoint, I like to teach with a PowerPoint. Moved away from the overhead transparencies that copying page upon page of. So you'll have your PowerPoint ready to go. Hit record, hit present on the PowerPoint. Start speaking, start presenting, teaching, showing your PowerPoint, talking, taking questions. When you're done the lesson, hit stop, and then it creates a file. AVI form, WMV form. And then with that file, load it straight onto Blogger, throw it onto YouTube directly. So you don't have to really do any editing, right? Unless you get something like this where someone comes in and asks a question that kind of takes away from the presentation. So of course you might want to take that out, right? The announcement goes on, all of a sudden it's like, okay, I got to take that out because I don't want that person's name being, let's say, spoken out loud, let's say, on the presentation. Yeah.
You don't have to convert the video file to anything with the export or
No.
anything like that?
No, you may if you want to shrink it, let's say, but the files aren't that big that are formed using smartboard tools. So, and on YouTube, I don't know, I think you're allowed under 2 gigs.
So you can,
Yeah. So, but again, the more you put on, like I know I'm a partner now with YouTube, so I can put on a 1 hour podcast if I want. So I can go beyond the 15 minutes that YouTube now allows, right? So if you ever come across videos that were longer than the 15 minutes that people were allowed to, it's either they had the account way back at the beginning when YouTube first came out, or they became a partner, and to become a partner you kind of apply and prove that your page, what it's being used for, and that it would be useful to allow for videos that are long. Because originally when I first started doing them, I'd have a 35-minute lesson that I had to cut it into maybe 4 parts because I didn't want it to cut in between a concept. I wanted the concept there. So all of a sudden, I could have cut it down into, maybe into 3 segments, let's say, but I chose, let's say, 4 or 5 because, well, it depended on the idea. I did not want an idea cut. And then you have to go dig around and find where part 2 of the video is. So, let's go back. Okay, so on a Mac, if you do use a Mac, you can use QuickTime Screen Recorder. PowerPoint, again, like I said, I personally don't like using Word. Some teachers like to use Word. They'll do their notes on Word and just kind of open up the Word document and just kind of zoom in on the text. I kind of like PowerPoint just because it just looks a little more visually appealing. Audacity, pretty much on PC. You can use it also on Mac. But this really, if you're thinking about just creating actual audio podcasts alone. So depending on what it is, audio podcasts are great. But again, depending on what you're using it for. Personally, like if I was teaching a math concept, me solving a math problem, really just with audio, isn't gonna work. Isn't gonna work unless you had it in conjunction with, let's say, a PowerPoint that a student would download. So you have, let's say, on Google Docs a PowerPoint that you set up, and it's going to be step by step, and it's going to show them how the steps are going to be done. And you say, okay, hit enter now to show the next step. And you hit enter, and then the next step of the equation pops up. Hit enter now to hit, and so you can always direct students with an audio, but in conjunction with something visual. A GarageBand comes with the Mac. Again, either one, they're great tools to use. Audacity, I know, is free within the. I think it's within the entire Toronto board. I know it's within the Toronto Catholic board. We have it. They have it in their all programs. Movie Maker, iMovie, editing the video. Really, there's not much editing. Again, now if you do, if you are doing something live, and you are going to have interruptions, and you want to take that out, yeah, you might want to go into a movie video editing software to edit, take out what you don't want. I like to put credits, opening credits and end credits in my videos, but the credits are really, I want a title, because sometimes they'll just kind of click the link, but I want something in the opening credits that says exactly what we're going to be covering, and then an end credits that kind of says if you have any questions, email me this. Just little things like that. But like I said, the editing really, if you have your PowerPoint set up, hit record, hit present on your PowerPoint, present, hit stop. There's your file. So, and then pretty much, again, if you do go on to YouTube or on Blogger, it's really self-explanatory once you set up your account to upload. So, a few benefits, educational benefits. The idea of pretty much extending the lesson beyond the classroom. Curriculum is a big thing. As teachers, we kind of fight to try to cover throughout the year. And of course, sometimes there are lessons that maybe are a little bit dry, that, well, it's a lot of theory. And so instead of going through and just, rereading whatever it was in the textbook, right? Why not create a podcast on the theory aspect that the kids can just kind of use it as a homework tool and go, okay, for homework, if you want, you choose, you either read or you go watch the podcast on the theory, right? We'll kind of address some of the key points, but we're going to focus more on the actual problem solving. Right? Like I know in some prestigious universities in the States, all lectures are actually now on podcasts. And they're worried, okay, well, are students going to come to class now if they can get your lesson? But the key is to make sure that you have something that will draw them back. Right? You can have your lessons now, but there's nothing like being able to ask a direct question. You're going, okay, well, I see the step there. Right? I see it on the video, and I keep rewinding, and I know why, but why are you really doing it? You maybe didn't explain that. Right? You come across, right, if you're actually going through a lesson, sometimes we'll kind of go through some of the more simpler problems in class, and all of a sudden you get to the last two problems in the set of in the worksheet. All of a sudden, those are the ones that are so much more difficult. They're the ones that have all the tricks to it. But now you'll have time to be able to take up these trick questions. You'll have more time to be able to go through every question in a test. You'll have more time to take up the questions in homework. Allow for more class discussion on material, because if students are able to go, oh, I don't really care to read, but hey, I'll watch the video. Right? Why not? Right? But again, you got to make sure that you've got your class on board in order to be able to be doing that. And it's not something that you want to introduce late into the year. It's kind of something where first day I usually tell them what the websites are, where I'm posting my videos, what's up there, what I'm going to be teaching in the next couple of classes, and I tell them, if you want to know what I'm going to teach and have an idea before we come to class, there it is. So it's the enrichment for the students who are going to get it firsthand. Right? So the lesson in class is really for the students who might be struggling, let's say on their own, or maybe aren't as motivated, but hey, my teacher's in front of me, he's explaining it, she's explaining it to me, I'll listen. So here it is that they can ask questions, with something live as opposed to just a video. But again, if you've seen what the lesson is ahead of time, you can anticipate, right, what some of the questions are. Again, something that pretty much creates something that is actually downloadable. Right? The students can kind of take home and say, okay, you know what? I don't want to bring my books home. I can just bring that, go home and download the podcast. We're the school where I'm at, we're non-semestered, so students are juggling 8 subjects. And I've got students right now who are doing chemistry, physics, biology. All big, thick textbooks. Not to mention whatever math that they do. Right? So if I can really, shrink that load that they're taking home in their knapsacks by having one less textbook that they have to worry about, then I'm helping them out with whatever way I can. So, ability to listen to a lecture multiple times, right? So you didn't understand something, you're a little shy to kind of put your hand up and say, can you re-explain that? I didn't get it, right? So you're going to have that student who's shy, doesn't want to say, doesn't want to ask questions. All of a sudden, like, oh, forget it, I'm lost, I'm not going to bother. I don't usually speak up, so why am I going to do it now? Right? So here, a student can now go back, watch it. Okay, I still don't get it, rewind it back. And then hopefully, with repetition, they'll see what the pattern was, let's say in the lesson, in that problem that we solved. Flexibility in class schedule, no more missed classes. So students miss a class, students can go now online and actually watch the lesson that they just missed. I don't record every single class. If I'm teaching something maybe for the first time, I may record it. And I may improve on it if I want to, but if I'm happy with it, no point in redoing it. Right? So I already have that, so I don't have to. So don't think that I'm trying to say, well, record every single class for the rest of your teaching career kind of thing. You're going to have, how many, how many thousands of lessons. What I'm saying is pretty much just kind of, especially with some key topics that that are going to give students a hard time. It's going to be hard to be able to gauge that as a first-year teacher, but once you get the experience with certain material, like one thing I know is I can anticipate with certain subjects, I can anticipate where students are going to have problems with. And that's one thing you're going to learn slowly when you start marking tasks and you start to see what are some common mistakes students keep doing, and you want to really focus on and really make sure that that's in one of your podcasts, so they're hearing it again. Yeah.
But wouldn't that flexibility kind of be one-sided, because you wouldn't be able to record the activities if you like to give a lot of activities in class and students are doing?
Mhm.
So they don't want to really record your lessons and you helping the kids use your conference, stuff like that, but you can't really do activities like outside in the groups and stuff like that.
Mhm.
That wouldn't really be either.
Well, you could. We wouldn't be recording that stuff, the stuff that they're doing, unless if we wanted to, let's say. So what we would do is, if depending on if they mastered the material, if they wanted to create something for their peers, and that's one thing I'm going to show you guys, a couple of podcasts that my students created for their peers, right? So all of a sudden it's like, okay, we're going to learn a concept. Now you're going to teach this concept to your peers, right? So whether your peers are in that class or whether those peers are, maybe taking with a different teacher, so they're getting a different viewpoint. One thing I was addressing with the group in the first session today was most of my students don't really like to listen to me again, but it's the students who are not in my class who wouldn't mind hearing it through a different perspective, right? So that's another thing that you create. But again, it all depends on your students. Some of my students, they're pretty arrogant as it is, but they're great kids. But they, like I said, they can be a little bit cocky where they're like, yeah, I get the material, sir, I got it the first time. So, but again, believe it or not, some of them will actually go to them just before the midterms and, oh my God, what a great, valuable tool it is. I went through them all last night, kind of thing. And it's like, I actually finally understand, and then they start to realize, oh my goodness, what, I've had this tool all along, right, and I've never really used it, right, because kids will wait till the last minute. They won't watch it the day of the lesson. They won't watch it a week later. They'll watch it, the night before when there's a test, and they're like, oh, I forgot my book. Okay. Increased interaction with the instructor instead of focused on note-taking. I remember when teaching with an overhead and putting up the overhead and trying to teach it, but meanwhile, every kid is like this. You're so busy trying to write every single word and dot every single line and put every single comma that I had on my overhead transparency that they weren't listening. So by using something like PowerPoint and just putting a couple of lines up there, and another thing is students actually will download my lessons on paper. So my PowerPoints will be as PDF files, or we can have them as Word files that they will download ahead of time. So here's another, tool that kind of takes away, is not geared towards the podcasting, but that will allow you to be able to still keep up with the curriculum without having to spend, half an hour just on note-taking. Yeah.
So, for instance, in university, what a lot of the class did was upload their lectures prior to the actual lecture or the lesson or whatever you want to call it, and then you have the option of printing the slides, and from there, I guess a small space to be able to just write in other notes.
Exactly,
So
and that's exactly Okay. So the stuff that students will see at the university level, we're kind of showing them now at the high school level, right? Because let's face it, kids are so focused, and they'll write for a whole period, but then ask them a question about what they wrote. Yeah, exactly, because they spend you could literally write stuff that makes no sense to the material, and they will write it down. Until you point it out later. I remember once one of my PowerPoints had an error, and it had the same sentence repeated. And they were copying it, and they had no idea that they all copied it twice until someone said, "Sir, you have that pointing up twice on the same slide," and no one noticed it. And they went back. Everyone went back. Oh my goodness, they just copied it for the second time. But they had no idea that they were copying the same thing because they're copying it almost word by word, word for word. It's like the, can, and so whatever they're seeing, They're just writing. They're not looking at the statement, and they're not looking at the actual line, the point that's being made. They're looking at it as, okay, what word is there? What's the next one? What's the next one? What's the next one? And it's a supplement to traditional class notes, right? So students can kind of pretty much, maybe they didn't catch a point. They can go back and go, oh, I was trying to write something, and all of a sudden it slipped my mind. Something slipped my mind, and I didn't get to finish that point that he addressed. Now I can go back and actually rewind it, right? Like I know as a student, I remember audio recording, what my professors would be lecturing. But while, there would be some stuff that I never was able to jot down, and you go back to the audio recording, let's say. So kind of taking that, but turning that as the lesson, right? And so, and trying to use a tool that students really love, right? Their iPods, their MP3 players. And if you can be able to create a file that can go into that device that is educational, why not? Why not? So, audio resource for blind students or for distance education students. Every now and then I get students who will leave and go on vacation, probably the worst time just before midterms, and come back the week before midterms and miss like 3 weeks of school and try to keep up, right, for the midterm. So students now, we pretty much will discuss and show them exactly where they can get the resources ahead of time so they can stay prepared. So that here is something that a student can do now, can download all those lessons if they did have an MP3 player, and be able to take these lessons and watch them at their leisure while they're on vacation. And plus it's different from, the one thing I'll tell students, if they're on vacation, hey, vacation's vacation. I know that, we've got a midterm coming up. Enjoy your time off, right? It's not supposed to be 3 weeks, I had a student just come back, she came back from the Philippines, like, 3 weeks, what, I'm gonna make you enjoy the Philippines? How are you gonna enjoy it if I'm gonna tell you to study every single day, right? So here, if we can do it in a way where it's not gonna feel like it's work, right? They're able to still keep up. And of course, they're able to keep up at their own pace. Hey, I want to listen to 10 minutes maybe right now. Pop it in, right? Before bed. I can't sleep, so I'll put the earbuds in, hit play, and watch it. In the comfort of my bedroom. Portability, again, kind of that last point kind of addressed that. The idea of, bringing it with them, right? Students, right? You're sitting on the bus, maybe they want to, they have their reputation to uphold, right? So they don't want to take their textbook out. Right? So here they got their earbuds and everyone thinks, oh, cool, they're listening to music, but meanwhile they're studying for your test. And again, as we said, it could be the video aspect, but, sometimes even just the audio aspect of a video is good enough. Right? So we don't really, depending on the lesson, maybe I'm just trying to listen to the concepts, that are being addressed. I know the visual aspect of it, but maybe it's just the concepts I want to hear. Right? So I can take a video and just take the audio aspect of that video. Just listen to it. Let the video play, in my pocket, but I'm listening to it. Yeah.
With languages too, there's such an importance of input, just continual input. So even just having them hear, even if they're not
Exactly.
understanding the content or absorbing all the content,
Exactly.
just having that
Just
constant
over,
input.
exactly, over and over again. Another thing, beneficial to auditory learners, right? Kids who like to listen to things, maybe they want to sit and read, right? But they'll take more out of it with audio being, repetitively pushed, at them. And multitasking, exercising while listening to a lecture. It's kind of hard to balance on a treadmill, a textbook maybe, right? But here, you've got the earbuds in, you listen to music. Hey, why not? Okay, you know what? One workout. I'm working out. We've got midterms next week. Okay, maybe the music can come to a stop just for this week. I'll be listening to lessons now for the half hour that I'm on it. That's it.
Would that really be helpful for subjects that are more visual, like mathematics?
So that's, again, it all depends on whatever the subject happens to be. But again, as we were mentioning before, that depending, sometimes, hearing it over and over again. Like I'm thinking of a lesson like completing the squares and just the repetition of what the steps are, right? Especially if you do kind of know it and just kind of want repetition of, okay, step 1, do this, step 2, do that, step 3, do this, right? Yeah, so it's not just, of course there's some things that are, visual, but sometimes just hearing certain steps being reinforced over and over again. Okay, so some student activities, pretty much just throw up a problem like that, right? So students will be doing their seat work. call a student up, set them up, okay, with the microphone. This one's a cool activity to do with with the microphone, just because if they're speaking into the microphone, they can speak right here, quietly into the microphone, without really anyone else listening to them. And you make sure that everyone does this at one point. And so what you do is you'll create a file on every student solving, let's say, a math problem, right? And you document it and you evaluate that. You figure out a rubric that you want to use to evaluate the assessment. But while they're there, they're not just answering it, right? Because there are some kids who, they'll be able to, fiddle through the equation, be able to solve for x. That's the end of this equation. But hearing them, right, getting the communication aspect of that, them answering that question, right, is such a valuable tool, and it's something that you can kind of show a parent on parent-teacher interviews. You have their files, so under their name you have a list of files, math, English, you have science, whatever the lesson happens to be that you choose to do. You create a lesson like this for, right? You have something to kind of play and say, look, your son or daughter is struggling with, with the algebra, and here is them trying, maybe struggling through the problem, and maybe needing extra assistance for it, right? Because you could coach them along the way, right? And them being coached along the way, again, is part of the audio, and the parent can also hear that. Oh, my son, daughter needs that coaching to go through something. So here's where they're going through some struggles. Another thing to kind of go into having allowing parents to be able to monitor their progress is, if you were doing elementary, you have students reading, and I guess maybe even reading language, right? If they're if you're doing one of the languages, having them read a story, and just monitoring how they've improved. Right, so you record them in September. Maybe you record them monthly. Maybe you record them every other month. Right, and you have them hear it. Like, how many times will a student say, "Well, no, I think I'm fine," but not until they listen to it will they really be able to critique themselves. Right. I don't know if you've ever been asked in one of your placements to ever record yourself as a teacher, how you present, how you teach in front of the classroom, and then you see and you think, oh, I think I'm doing a great job, and then you kind of watch, oh my goodness, I keep doing that all the time. Right? So being able to hear yourself, and being able to play back something like that is a great way to have students to be able to critique themselves, right? Because they're critiquing themselves based on, well, I'm thinking, I'm reading it right now, I'm doing it fine. But let them hear it, and then point out exactly what it was, right? Because maybe they're not noticing it when they're presenting something or reading something, right? So you can have a paragraph up on the smartboard, have them read it. You can have them just with a microphone, and here's a perfect thing just to do an audio, right? Get Audacity out, get GarageBand out, and then, or even with a regular book, just have them read from a book, okay? And then kind of monitor that, right? And keep track, right? Date the file so the student can see back and go, look at how your reading has improved over, or your pronunciation in some of the languages has really improved. If you're going pretty much with anything creative, something maybe artistic, get kids to create a book, right? Get them to create their own kids book, and have them read it. So you scan the pictures and have them read over the scanned pictures. So you throw the pictures into a slideshow, right? Have them read it, and then record it. Right? And it's something that they can take back with them. It's like they've got the physical book, but they'll also have the audio aspect of that book as well. So, makeup assignments, tests can be in the form of an oral presentation. One of the things that we did was we would have a regular test component, but then one of the components was a communication component. And we would give students 6 questions. And we said, you will be asked to answer one of those 6 questions orally. So you prepare the night before. So you call each student one at a time. We call them into the office one at a time. They'd be in front of the computer. They hit record when they're ready to start. Right? So they gather their thoughts, and we'll tell them right there on the spot, you're doing question number 2. So read the question and answer it. And so we create an audio file, or we create a video file in the form of a webcam broadcast of them answering the question. right? So how many times, you'll get students who will maybe do poorly on a test. They test poorly, but you ask them the same question and recite it orally, and they're able to answer it. So these are a few things that they keep in mind. The idea of being able to burn something onto a DVD or a CD, something that you can take home. Kids can kind of take pride in that kind of a medium instead of, a worksheet. Bless you. A worksheet does really well. Get posted on the, the kitchen, in the kitchen, right on the refrigerator, right? But here, maybe a DVD gets taken home, and it's like, look, Grandma, look, Grandpa, look, Aunt, Uncle, listen to this or watch this, what I created, right? Students really love to show off other types of media that they use, right? And these are, to them, it's a little bit cooler to show off, right? Students aren't going to come back and go, and show off to all their friends and family, look at this test I wrote, I aced it. They'll want to show, look at this cool video I put together on this thing. Right? So, and here's a chance pretty much to be creative with your assignments and just being able to use a tool like the stuff from the Smartboard. I'm going to show you guys a couple of video clips of some of the podcasts that my students have created. And what it was I had a couple of senior students who we did a lab, and then I asked some of the kids who felt very confident with the material, and I said, would you like to put together a video for it? So we'd set them up after school, and they got extra credit if they wanted, or if they were looking for volunteer hours, all depending on what they wanted. But they would do the lab.
That's a bright flame, okay.
So here with the lab now, they're able to also emphasize some of the lab safety and procedures on, let's say here with the example of how to light up the Bunsen.
Okay, so as you can see, there's a blue flame. This means that the flame is hot enough for us to put the magnesium ribbon in. So here's the magnesium ribbon.
And another thing is, now if a student,
looks like
what
this.
we would do is we'd send the students to go watch the video.
We're going to pick it up with
before
our
time, so they know exactly, right? Because they're reading the procedures on paper.
and we're going to put it over the hottest
Here
part
they're
of the
physically
flame.
seeing a student
Be careful
do
not
the
to stare at it
procedures,
too intensely
so they're
because
not
this may hurt
messing
your
up the
eyes.
steps.
So here it goes.
And again, this is one of the cool experiments that if a student's absent, is going to miss that one. But at least they can at least see what they would have seen. It's not as cool as being live and seeing it,
And record the
but at least
reaction in your
they can still
lab report.
do the report and still be able to keep up with the class, even though they missed the lab where, we're not going to have the chance to redo the lab, let's say. Here I have another video. Students were doing a unit on electricity.
Coulomb steam is the metric unit for electric charge. 1 coulomb is equal to 6.24 times 10 to the power of 18 electrons added to or removed from a neutral object.
Did you know that the Coulomb was named after Charles Augustin de Coulomb? Charles Augustin de Coulomb was a French physicist who worked with electric charges and made several important discoveries about attraction and repulsion.
And they
First
take pride.
discovery was that when two charged objects are closer together, the attraction and repulsion increases. The second discovery was that
So, and then I have one where they kind of take the whole idea of teaching the lesson, but they throw in a little bit of acting and humor at the beginning of the lesson.
There you are. Today we will be investigating the murder of Sirius A.
This is Sirius B, who is not in the main
killer
sequence.
didn't you?
He is the main suspect, and thus is being interrogated by Detectives Hertzsprung and Russell.
You're gonna kill him.
We are main sequence stars. Who's not gonna let us into that party?
Hey, don't try to get ahead.
Sirius B? Why are you here? You're a light dwarf, not a main sequence star! To further investigate, the detectives will learn about stars.
This is the Hertzsprung-Russell diagram.
So then they kind
Each
of, they
point
kind
on
of
the
try to,
scatter graph
you know,
represents
get you
a
to
star.
watch, and then they kind of
And
go
thus,
into.
we determine the
lesson
star's
was on.
temperature and luminosity with the
So, and with
x and y
editing, you have the
axis.
ability to kind of emphasize some actual text that you really want to really reinforce in an actual topic. Yes, yes. So I'll give them some time in the lab. I'll actually look at the quality of their work, and depending on just how intricate detail that they're putting into their, I don't mind doing extensions. Right? There is, you give it a deadline, right? And of course, if a student's just going to set the camera up in front of the board and they're going to explain, of course, maybe they're not going to get the deadline, the extension to the deadline, like the students who they're putting in a whole play with it, and and they're trying to really jazz their video up. Yeah.
Would you do that for like every student, or like as a project, or would you just do that for certain students?
I do. I would with both of these. It was a class assignment, so they partner up 2-3 people in the group, and I would always try to tell them to try to find people who in their group that wouldn't mind being in front of the camera, right? So you might have a student who would prep the text aspect of the lesson, maybe put together the PowerPoint, that might not want to be in front of the camera, right? And the students who want to be in front of the camera, yeah, let them ham it up if they want, right? And so we would do, they would do a video like this, and we would advertise it to the school, so they know it's like, well, this is something you guys are learning, right? So why not open that up to the other students who are in the other classes who aren't doing this assignment, but still need to cover this material. It's a different way to cover the material. Yeah.
When given a group project like this, especially because there's so many different dimensions, do you ever assign the roles within a group, or do you let the students choose themselves?
I let them choose themselves.
Normally, like the timid students or like the shy students or reserved, I guess you could say, are always going to take on that role, so they don't necessarily get to have the experience in other aspects.
You're going to have that, and the thing what you also want to do is make sure that you kind of have them monitor themselves, so you get them to just kind of journal who's doing what. So when they're handing in an assignment like this, they're handing it in on a DVD, they're handing it in as a USB, they're sending it as a link on their YouTube page. I would ask them to hand in their journal that documents who did what, and what it was, because you're going to be marked according to that. Because I also try to tell them, look, you're getting a group mark. So be aware that if you're getting a 90, that student in that group, if they did nothing, they're getting that same mark that you're going to get. So keep that in mind when you are joining the group, and you're just thinking, oh yeah, I'll bring them in, but just be accepting that. Hey, yeah, if I get a 90 and I did all the work, that person's also getting a 90, and you're really doing the work. So, any questions?
When you mean that those lessons you were saying earlier about how students can record their own podcast of the lesson to show to other people, would that be something again that you would assign for the individual students, or
Yeah.
would it be kind of like
It would be something I saw, like one thing I did, a student kind of come asking, I'm trying to improve my mark, and might need a couple of percent, and I'll say, yeah, okay, if you can put together a topic, and we'll kind of go through something in the unit maybe that they struggled with, and they said, okay, I want to see what you got. I do not want to see it plagiarized. I want to know exactly where you're getting it from, because if the PowerPoint, it becomes just a copy and paste it from Wikipedia or something. Really, they're not getting it. So I really want to be able to see them presenting something where they're not really looking, they're reading it from a sheet of paper. So if they're standing up there and this is them, they've got the sheet of paper up kind of thing, and they're so focused on them reading it, and like, well, really, how much of this material do you really know?
So you're evaluating then the output in regards to whether they can like synthesize and summarize and
Exactly.
so like
Exactly.
the theory is presented maybe in a podcast or
Exactly.
they would choose to read or whatnot, and from there they'll end up.
Oh yeah. Well, and it's important. Like one of the benefits I had with this presentation, this group, our school, we've got the designation of being a math, science, technology school. So this group that I had them for Comtech and for science. So I was lucky enough to have them in a tech class where we were kind of going cross-curricular. I was like, okay, we're doing a science podcast, but you're editing it in Comtech class. So what we would have done, right? Originally, their first podcast before I was teaching them was just a PowerPoint that they spoke in front of. That was it. So they would teach in front of a PowerPoint presentation, and that was their podcast. But because I eventually got them in a Comtech class, I said, let's jazz these podcasts up. Right? So let's put a Comtech twist to it and make it, visually appealing. Right? Put in the little drama at the beginning of the video. Right? And make it funny. But I try to stay away from too many guidelines, because if you give the kids, their own creative, power, you'd be surprised what they can give you. Some of the stuff that kids have given me has blown me away with the little bit that I when I assign something, and they take the ball and they run. So, and of course, you do not want to penalize students who maybe aren't as creative. So when you are writing up rubrics, you also want to keep in mind that, students who maybe aren't as artistic should still be able to excel and still be able to get an excellent mark. So it shouldn't be for the creative ones who can get the 90. The student who is maybe not as creative but just as bright, in other facets, could still get that high 80, low 90 for that assignment.
So your weighting is, I guess,
Based on a
evenly,
multitude,
of form and content as
Exactly,
well.
exactly.